Hi, I'm Robert Landau. Why don't you come out and see the show at the museum? It looks great. There were a lot of them. First the Beatles, and then people like Crosby, Stills, and Nash. There were a lot of people living in LA and were playing on the Strip originally. Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, Jackson Browne, a lot of those artists, and then the Eagles later on, who were sort of affiliated with kind of this California sound that was coming out at that period. But I remember how hard it was because I'd be on the street level and there's this constant flow of traffic. So a lot of times you'd have to wait for breaks in the traffic, and I remember how difficult that was. And I couldn't shoot that much film, it was expensive. To shoot a roll of film and then develop it was probably $15-20. So you take one or two frames and then you had to move on. But I just sort of remember that feeling of being out there and saying, God, I hope I can I hope the traffic breaks, or sometimes I'd be waiting for somebody to walk through to get some scale in the picture. So that sort of process of just eventually slowly becoming aware of working, taking photographs in an urban landscape. A couple of reasons. I was a teenager. I was listening to this music, the Beatles and all that, rock and roll. And I had just moved with my father. My folks just got divorced. I moved with my dad to a little apartment about a block from the Sunset Strip. And I had my first camera, and I'd walk down the street, and there would be these guys on scaffolding painting John Lennon and the Beatles 15 feet tall. And so I took a picture, and these billboards would come up and down very quickly. They'd be up for a couple of weeks and then vanish. So if a band came up that I'd like, I'd take a picture of it just to have it. And I started out having slideshows for my friends. I was shooting Kodachrome film. That was the final use for me at that point, was to have these slideshows for my friends. And it was only like 40 years later that I realized inadvertently captured this kind of unique period in rock and roll history that very few people knew about. Something about the scale of these things too has this kind of natural surrealism to them. When you see like a McDonald's hamburger bun and the seed is the size of a man's head. So. Another thing I was reminded of was like really how basically non-commercial these images were. They really were not about, they didn't say, go to this record store and buy our album. It wasn't about that at all. It was about creating a vibe or an identity or a buzz in the industry. And they knew not that many people would see these, just the few people driving on the Strip for that month. Yeah, there's definitely some truth to that. That this brings back memories, and this period when I was shooting these is what now, 50 years ago? I'm not good with numbers, but this is kind of weird to think that something you grew up on was just part of your life and then actually becomes history.